Konnichiwa, y'all, and welcome to Tuesday, the 10 at 10 for August 15th of 2023.
Hey y'all, I'm Tim. We're gonna be talking about our 10 new trees we list every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But first, y'all, we've got our open house. It's coming up on Labor Day. So make sure you come here on Labor Day. We're gonna have a lot of greenhouses open up for people to come shop in person, and that's gonna be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Check out our details on our website.
It's gonna be a fun day. We've got a food truck, a band, and as always, thousands and thousands of great maples and a ton of other cool plants. You're definitely gonna want to make plans to be here, and we'll make it worth your while. There's gonna be some fun surprises that day.
So now back to the 10 at 10, y'all. What y'all came from for, we've got some cool plants on the table, some off the table. We're gonna be talking about 10 of the 20 trees getting listed today. Make sure you sign up for our weekly emails. You'll figure out the other 10 trees that are getting listed that we don't talk about in the video.
Let's start down there with that big boy on your side. What you got?
Guys, we got some 3 gallons of Acer Longapeas gold coin.
Whether you call it amplum, whether you call it longapeas, whether you call it Cappadoscum subspecies sinicum, this is a fun plant. And it was originally introduced by Esfeld as Acer Longapeas gold coin. So highly sought after for that highly intense yellow spring color. This one really brings it, and it's a fun plant to be growing, especially here in the South.
We've got a gorgeous one of these at Maplewood Gardens at our parents' home in full sun. Really brightens up the yellow color the more sunlight you can give this thing. In the springtime, this thing is just electric with some of the best yellows in the fall or in the spring, and it really gives you some good yellow colors if you give it some more sunlight all throughout the season as well. An amazing tree, one of the most yellow plants that you can have out there in the garden if you give this tree some sunlight.
Yeah, as you get up to those hotter zones, you'll want to give it some more late day shade for its best color. That bleached out look though is one of the most intense yellows you can get anywhere in Japanese maples. Really a fun plant. That big leaf kind of reminds you a little bit, you know, it's closely related to Acer pictum, so it kind of reminds you a little bit of that batwing maple. These are also grafted to Acer truncatum, so you get a little bit of that batwing vibes going on. Slightly different species, but still really unique, large, round leaves. And that yellow is really unprecedented. I think probably the closest thing to Jordan for like the most peak yellow you can get.
It really is. And this is one of those plants too, they're grafted to Acer truncatum. That means they're more heat tolerant, can really do well in a lot of areas. Some people will graft these to Norway maple. These particular ones are grafted to Acer truncatum, and that just allows them to do well so many other places all around the country.
Ooh, nice one. All right, y'all, back here we've got Horsemans Silverlock coming back. You always ask for conifers. We got one on the table for you today.
And there's some more conifers getting listed today, so check out that email. Check out quick, because a lot of these plants are going to sell out quickly, like those gold coin. We got some great 3-gallon sizes of those right now. Yo, Horseman Silverlock, this is an upright. It has this really nice pyramidal shape to it, but the thing that this thing does is it has these recurved needles where you see the backside of the foliage, which is silver. And that gives such a pleasing appearance out in the landscape and garden.
Oh, excellent in that winter garden, especially. It's got that spike of white going on there in the winter garden. I love to put coral barks near this. You kind of get that perfect accent plant, I think, with coral barks with Horseman. Such a fun plant to be growing and really showy. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, I love that new growth in the early spring. Those kind of little new growth it puts on over top is really intense.
This is a plant that can give you that silver white appearance out in the landscape that you don't really get with many conifers. And definitely a fun plant you're going to really enjoy.
All right, y'all, we've got Dixie Delight. Talking about a coral bark, here's one for you right away.
This is a selection by Mike Francis. Matt and I were good friends with Mike Francis Sr., and he found this as a chance seedling, and it was one of those things where we really wanted this plant.
Yeah.
We went down there and we were like, Mike, you know, do you have any of these for sale? No, I don't have this for sale. And we'd go back down there again later and said, do you have any of those for sale? And he'd say, no, I don't have these for sale. And here he came out with Dixie Delight. Wasn't for sale, but he gave us and gifted us an Acer palmatum Dixie Delight.
Yeah, Mike's super cool guy. Mike Sr. was just one of the funnest people. He actually found this one as a rootstock. He'd grafted a Tsumukiyama into it. He was delivering a Tsumukiyama to a customer's house, and he said, hey, something's wrong with one of your Tsumukiyamas. I need to hold one of these. So he went back home real quick, got him another Tsumukiyama, come back, broke the Tsumukiyama out of the top of it, because what he had growing out the side was Dixie Delight. Now, I know many other nurserymen were bonkers for this one. What's really fun about Dixie Delight is it is a multi-stemmed orange bark to yellow bark, dwarf, compact coral bark.
Yeah, it's really unusual in the fact that it does put on lots of side branches down really low. This creates a shorter, more dense habit on a coral bark selection. And this one gets more yellow towards the base, more orange towards the tips, giving it a really unique appearance. Dixie Delight gets you some really nice coral pinks on some of the new growth, and the fall colors are yellows and oranges. So you get a multitude of colors in the fall as well. Dixie Delight selection from near Atlanta, Georgia. Fairly heat tolerant selection as well.
Yeah, if you like this one, I think it's a perfect candidate for a container planting. That multi-stem gives you a ton of winter interest, so you got a lot of what you like in a smaller habit. Dixie Delight coming back to Mr. Maple today on the 10 at 10. All right, what do we got next, Tim?
Guys, we got Acer palmatum Phantom Flame.
Boom! Another great one. This one's not an official member of the Ghost series, but if you're a hardcore Ghost collector, you got to have your Phantom Flame as well.
It's really like you took a first Ghost and you hybridized it with a Sumagaki. I mean, it gets these really intense purple borders in the early spring and on the new growth flushes. And it is super thick on that border. I mean, it is thicker than Sumagaki and Sumabeni on its purple border. And then on the interior part of the leaf, you get that ghost-like variegation. Selection by Crispine Silver, the guy who brought us Mystic Makawa. Fun plant. You want to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun.
All right, y'all, next up, we're bringing back Acer Shirasawatum Autumn Moon.
Autumn Moon is just one of these plants that gives you a multitude of colors as well. This one gives you some really nice pink reds over top of lime greens. Give this some protection from the hot afternoon sun. This is an amazing plant. Believe it or not, this is a selection by J.D. Vertrees. J.D. Vertrees is the guy who wrote the book on Japanese maples. We recently did a walkthrough of his gardens. So go check that out on our YouTube channel. You can see a walkthrough of the gardens of the guy who wrote the book on Japanese maples. And Autumn Moon, this is one of his selections.
Great size of these right now. So excellent size 1 gallons. Really fun. You get some new colors on top of this one. You get some reds and pinks over top of that green overlay, underlay. Really showy plant. Another one I think is excellent for a container. You can kind of play around with where you put it in the garden. Really nice bold orange fall colors on this one as well. So it kind of shows out a little bit in every season. And just a fun overall plant. I love that it has that big rounded full moon style leaf. I mean, it's one of those quintessential full moon style leaves.
It is. In the south, you've got to give this some protection from the hot afternoon sun. It's a great container plant, but this is a plant that gives you some really great colors out in the landscape because it just keeps putting on that new growth that colorful new growth over top of that lime green. It's a plant that's going to be a rock star in the garden.
All right, y'all. Unofficial member of the Shishigashira family here, we've got Nanyat on the table.
Y'all, Nanyat was named as a combination of Nancy and Yatsubusa. We were going and visiting one of our good friends, Mr. Baltzer, Bob Baltzer, who introduced Alpenweiss. And we went and took a photo with the original Alpenweiss, and we're walking around his garden talking plants, and we're like, hey, is there anything cool that you wish you would have introduced? And he said, well, let me show you this seedling. And he had this tree in a 15 to 40 gallon container, so probably about a 40 gallon container, this really old seedling. And he said, I call this Nanyat. And we're like, whoa, could we get some signwood? So we got to introduce this tree into the nursery trade here at Mr. Maple. The name is a conglomeration of American name and a Japanese word. But this is a cool plant that is a little more taller, a little more stretched out than Shishigashira, but gives you some really good yellow fall color.
Yeah, this one's a perfect analogy of a mix between Shishigashira and Aoyagi. You get that green yellow stemming of Aoyagi. You get that highly intense yellow, highlighter yellow fall color. You get that ruffled edge of Shishigashira, kind of making it a perfect blend of the two. So if you're a fan of Aoyagi or Shishigashira, I think it's a must. I like to throw it in that lion's head family because it has that ruffled, regal appearance that just makes that Shishigashira so popular. And you get a little bit different platform for it. I mean, this one's a fun one. I like to go out and take pictures of mine in the winter because that bark is highly intensely soft, light yellow to almost a light green in the winter months, like that Aoyagi color. Maybe a little bit more pale than Aoyagi sometimes. And that fall color may be one of the best yellows I've ever seen.
It's pretty spectacular. Speaking of your Nanyat, we did a whole cultivar highlight on this tree, so go check it out. We did a cultivar highlight of Nanyat in perfect fall color. You can see that yellow fall color we're talking about. Guys, next up, we've got Acer palmatum Ueno Yatsubusa. Everything you love about Uenoyama, shorter, denser, and more compact.
Yeah, really cool orangey pinks and yellows on this one in the early spring. Kind of fades to a really nice bold orange early. Underrated for bonsai. If you love DeSojo and some of those others, you know, think about Ueno-yama, but then Ueno-yatsubusa is already shorter and denser. Perfect candidate for bonsai. Small leaves, great spring interest, high orange-yellow spring color, really nice fall colors to it, and just a great plant to be growing in the landscape or in the container garden. I think it'd be a perfect candidate for bonsai though.
And this is a tree that was pretty much lost in the nursery trade for a while. It got produced in Boring, Oregon for a little bit, it got sold. We found this tree in a collector's garden down in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Got this tree produced and got this back into the nursery trade. And it really is a really fun and very rare Japanese maple.
Great one for the container. So if you want to put this one in a big planter, you can kind of play around with where you have it. I found it to be just as sun tolerant as Ueno-yama, so you can get this one out in some sun. I have that in full sun here in zone 6B. The Ueno-yatsubusa we grafted off of, you know, down in Spartanburg in a high heat area, so it's been doing well there. Make sure with this one, give it good drainage and just let it do its thing. All right, y'all, we got a Gingo on the table here.
Gingo Biloba Chichi, y'all.
It means boobs.
He's kind of right. It does. Sometimes people will spell it with a T-S-C-H-I, T-S-C-H-I, but that's just them trying to be politically correct. It is spelled C-H-I, C-H-I, and it's Spanish for boobs. What it does is it gets this winter interest where the bark itself protrudes downward, and the bark itself, you know, you'll have this trunk with boobs hanging off of the trunk.
Yeah, you kind of get these stalactite-like growths that kind of protrude down from these ginkgos. I love the shape of this one too. It's a large round canopy to it. Great overall ginkgo. You still get that classic yellow fall color, and it's just an overall great plant. This one tends to be dense and full, very round canopy. You know, ginkgos are going to work zones 3 through 9. They're salt tolerant, they're sun tolerant. They work in so many different settings, and this one gives you that aesthetic of having a bark interest as well. Another candidate for bonsai because it will develop that in the container, that fissured look to it. Really cool overall plant though.
Now we can't mention ginkgos without mentioning ginkgos love lime. That allows them to have the soil more conditioned so they can take up the water and the fertilizer better through their root system. So give them some garden lime. You can get some pelletized lime, it's real cheap, a huge bag, it's like $3, $4. And you just throw a couple handfuls on it in the spring, the summer, and the fall as this plant is getting established. It will take up the water and the fertilizers you put out there so much better and quicker.
Hey, get a couple of them, tell your husband, I want you to come out of the garden and check out my Chichis. He's gonna be out there in a heartbeat. All right, y'all, we're bringing back wave leaf. Now, this is one of my favorite new ghosts. You've heard us talk about wave leaf here before. The story behind this one went that it was in that Rising Stars set Talon does, where sometimes he grows seedlings and sells those as seedlings. Now, this one was one on the seedling block to sell off, and everybody kept coming up to Talon and going, what the heck is that? I want that. And so the more people did that, he went and give it a second look. He was like, maybe I shouldn't let this one go so fast. Maybe I should put a name on this one and graft it. And that's the story of how wave leaf got into the trade. Now, I'm super glad he did because this is one of my favorite new ghosts. So with the post-ghost series, once he started putting different names on them, this might be my favorite overall one of that. I love that it has a glossy sheen to it in that early spring.
Now, for being a ghost series, this one really has a more serrated edge and a deeply cut leaf, almost like Sister Ghost, but it has more of that purple ghost vibe going on with it. But that glossy sheen and this wavy appearance to the leaf really makes this tree stand out and is one of our favorite trees. I mean, this is a tree, I'm so glad that these customers went to Talon and said, yeah, hey, this plant is really cool, because this tree could have just made it to someone's landscape and never made it in the nursery trade.
I think it makes a perfect pairing with one of our introductions, Firefly. I love these two together. I think it's such a cool new tree. I don't think photos do it justice either. It's very hard to capture that glossy sheen to it. In person though, it's a definite fan favorite, and one we can't do enough of here at Mr. Maple. We're bringing back that wave leaf, y'all. All right, do we need to tell them about this one? This one's gonna sell out pretty fast. We've got Acer palmatum Japanese lanterns.
Y'all, it's been a while since we listed some Japanese lanterns on Mr. Maple for sale. This is one of our introductions here from the Area 51 collection, and the older foliage and the newer foliage often will curl downward like a Japanese lantern.
Yeah, they made these perfect little lantern shapes. We were watching this tree hit that orange-red fall color, and we were like, man, that looks like little lanterns. So we just got so hyped over this one. One of our first introductions we actually named here at our nursery, and a seedling that continued this trait on continuously. So we started grafting it, getting it out there, and they just look like perfect little lanterns. I think it's one of those interesting plant trees where the name perfectly fits it as well.
This is a tree that will end up getting about 8 to 10 feet in height you know, about 8 to 10 foot in width. And as this tree's branches arch outward, and you see those little branches that cup, those leaves that cup downward and hang off of the branches, it really does remind you of those lanterns in those Asian gardens.
It kind of puts on some spiraling shapes to it too. I mean, there's not a lot of contorted Japanese maples, but this one tends to put on these arching branches that kind of hang over your head, and it's the perfect placement for those little lanterns to fall down. Now, they're going to be green in the spring and summer, but in the fall, these can be electric red. I've even had some orange in there some seasons. It makes it a really fun and new introduction. Hadn't offered this one in a while. I do think they'll sell out pretty quickly just because of the scarcity of it, but we're bringing back Japanese lanterns.
You also make sure you check out fast. That means you add it to your cart, you complete the whole checkout process, and that's when it's reserved for you. If you don't do that, you just add it to your cart. Unfortunately, our system doesn't save it for you until you complete that checkout process, so make sure to check out fast.
All right, y'all, that's our 10 at 10 for today. I'm Matt. I hope you've enjoyed this one. We really appreciate our international community and everybody who subs here on the Mr. Maple Show. We consider y'all part of that Maple Mafia. We really appreciate y'all tuning in. And we can't ship to our international people, but it's so much fun to see where you're from. So let us know in that comment section below where you're watching at today.
And y'all, just remember, we got that Labor Day open house coming up. So you'll want to be here and shop in the top greenhouses. There'll be tons of plants you didn't see before, tons of plants you've never seen before. So make sure you come shop the Mr. Maple Labor Day Festival. That's going to be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Be there or be square.
Or you can be here and be square like Tim. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.